Hello, Jay and Frey here. Time for another vlog. Not much happened last week because I spent every single night in the theater rehearsing or performing in the War of the Worlds with Vision Theatre Productions. It was really fun when I was on stage, although I think my dress was maybe 2 sizes too small, so it was very awkward to try to sit on those stools and not flash the entire audience the whole of my thigh. I think the performance was excellent. I really, really do. I think the actors just really rose above, and it was just beautiful, and the set was gorgeous. I will put some links down here to the photos, or they're on my regular print blog if you wanted to look at those as well. The interesting thing about this is that we weren't doing the War of the Worlds. We were doing Mercury Theatre on the Air / Orson Welles does War of the Worlds. So our lead actor wasn't playing Professor Pearson, he was playing Orson Welles playing Professor Pearson. It was really interesting. We had Foley live on stage, and I thought it was really nifty. Unfortunately, I won't be able to upload any of the video that we took for posterity because the copyright on this production is pretty tight, and they don't allow you to post any video. But if you wanted to hear the production, I'm going to put a link down here. Go to this link right here. Go to this link right here on Halloween night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you will hear us doing War of the Worlds because we did actually record it while we were performing it. So go here. Happy Halloween. What else? Well, I've spent a small fortune in physiotherapy, and I'm mostly mobile again. Doing the play really killed me because there was heels and there was backless stools, and if I could have pulled out of it, I probably would have, but that would have been really rude to pull out the week before the show. So I didn't, and I suffered for it, and I'm now seeing the physiotherapist once or twice a week to try to just get all of the mobility in my back and my hip back. Next week, I do go for another MRI, some more medical testing. I get to go see my specialist in Toronto again. So maybe this time around we'll finally get a handle on what's wrong. It's been, nearly a full calendar year, and we still don't know what's happening. It's really frustrating because I'm sick of being sore. I'm sick of hurting. I'm sick of having to calculate how I sit and how far I can walk and whether or not today I can take the stairs. I'm really sick of it. And I'm looking forward to a time when it's resolved, if it gets resolved. It might not get resolved. When I get hit by the car and my tibular plateau got crushed and my cartilage got crushed, I had the surgery and, it was only 80% effective. I will never be fully, I'll never dance again. So I don't know. I would just like to be able to sit at my desk and not have my leg go numb, not lose feeling ever. That would be nice to just be able to sit at my desk and not have to get up every 10 minutes to go for a walk to get all the feeling back in my legs, to not have to do an hour's worth of exercises every morning just so I don't spasm and my back doesn't lock up. It'd be nice. And I was saying to a friend just how frustrating the waste of time of it is. I think of how much time I spend in this ridiculous, careful dance of self-care when I could be writing or editing or recording or working, making money. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating how much work and how much commitment it is to try to get better again. And I swear to God, if I didn't live in Canada, if I didn't have this medical EI, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be totally broke. I couldn't pay rent. I mean, I've already left one place because I couldn't pay rent. Ugh. Anyway, all right, moving on. I turned in The Forgotten Tale to my agent yesterday, so she should be reading it, probably now. She's probably actually reading it right now. Are you liking it, Lori? And once she gets back to me and I address the notes that she's given me, then it goes on to my publisher, and my editor at my publisher will then read it and give notes. It's I talked in another vlog about how melancholy it is to give up a manuscript for the last time. And in this case, this one's more like sending your baby to kindergarten. You've done the best that you can with them for 5 years, and then you're putting them out in public for the first time and going, oh God, honey, please, please, please don't vomit in the sandbox. Please don't be an embarrassment. Please don't make me look bad. Please be as awesome as I think you are. Because, of course, everyone loves their children more than anyone else's children. And everyone thinks that their child is more spectacular, more special, and more wonderful than everyone else's child. But putting that out there and asking people's opinions is hard, because for the first time you're saying, is my child as cool as I think my child is? Is my child as smart as I think my child is? I don't know, but I hope. And I was really concerned about this book because I've never written a sequel before. And I was talking with someone, way back in April, and she was saying the one thing you must not do with this book is you must not write a mushy middle book. And a mushy middle book is one of those books that literally only exists to get you, the reader, to buy the third book. It is the bridge between the first book and the second book. Nothing happens, nothing changes, it's boring, people don't focus on it, editors and writers don't put as much work into it as the first book. And that one's always difficult, because when you write a first book in a series, you've probably taken 10, 5, a whole year to do it. You've probably edited for a year. You've polished it. You've scrubbed it. If this is the book that you got your agent with, then you've really worked it over with your agent. I mean, that book, that first book in the series is the best book in terms of production. Like, it's solid, it's tight, it's been polished to a high shine. And then you're asked to produce a second book in a fraction of the time. Of course you're going to be concerned that you don't have the same amount of production time. I don't get as much time to sit with the book, and I don't have the luxury of putting the book in a drawer for a month, forgetting about it, and then rereading it with fresh eyes. It's literally something I don't have time to do. And I'm not complaining. This is not me complaining. This is me explaining that the process is very, very different. Now, the nice thing about a second or third book is that you know the characters at this point. You know the world. You know how they would react. You know exactly what sorts of situations to throw them into to hurt them, or make them happy, or to get a rise out of them, or to forward the plot. You have the rules of the world established, so you're not going to have issues with world building. So all of that work that happens here before the work happens here is already finished. So that's a luxury for a second and third book. I mean, I really do understand why people write series, because there's something easy about it. Not in a bad way, just comforting, I think is maybe the word I'm looking for, not easy. There's something comforting about going back to those worlds and knowing exactly what you're doing. It's like making dinner with a recipe you've been doing since you were a kid. Having said all that, then the concern is, did I pay enough attention? Did I think this through enough? Is this too much of a rehash of the first book? Am I anticipating people are going to remember things from the first book? Do I need to explain them? And if I do explain them, how do I do it in a non-condescending way? How do I clue in new readers who might have accidentally picked up the book at the second book instead of the first book? How do I remind people without annoying them? Blah, 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 blah. So there's so much consideration that has to go into the second book of a series. And then on top of all of that, everybody knows, your editor knows, your agent knows, the reader knows, everybody knows that the second book only exists to get people to the third book. So how do you write a second book that people care about? And I'm very lucky. I've got a beta reader friend whose favorite books are the second book in a series. She says The Two Towers is her favorite book. She loves reading the kinds of books that are not mushy middle books, that where you're familiar and you love the characters, and then you pick up the second book and it's like a breath of fresh air, or like stepping into a hot tub outside in the winter. It's this beautiful return to comfort. And I worked very, very hard trying to make sure that that's the tone that I hit with the book, and to make sure that there was character growth. Because, of course, The Untold Tale, when I first wrote it, I never intended it to be a series. And it is a series. I keep joking that, like Douglas Adams, it's now a series, and it's a trilogy in 6 parts. Because there's 3 major novels, and then 2 novellas that go between each of the novels. But also we've started posting the prequel comic, Ivy, that goes with it. So it is really a trilogy in 6 parts. So thanks for that, Douglas. That's a great way to describe it. I never intended for all of this, is the thing. When I wrote The Untold Tale, I really firmly believed that it would be a one-off book. So all of the major character growth that I anticipated happens in the first book. And one of the things that really frustrates me when I read a series, or when I watch it, definitely a film trilogy. I mean, one of the things that really bugged me about Avengers Age of Ultron is that the character growth that had happened in previous films was suddenly backtracked for the convenience of the plot. And one of the things that I was really concerned about with The Untold Tale was, where do my main characters go when I've already done the entire emotional arc and put them where I want them? How much further do they go? Do I backtrack them a little bit to have somewhere to go? But then that's cheap in my mind. Do I go back into the first book and not have them go as far with their character growth and their emotional arc? But then it feels like the book is half finished, which again is cheap, because it's like it's pushing you. You have to buy the second book to have a satisfying ending to the first book, and that's cheap. That's not a good story in my mind. That's capitalism, not storytelling. Not that there's anything wrong with people wanting to make money on their stories, but when you sacrifice artistic integrity for cash, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. And I don't like to disappoint, and I definitely don't like to disappoint myself. I would not have felt comfortable putting out a version of The Untold Tale that was less than my best, and the less than the best version of the book it could have been. So that's sort of been my concern with the second book, is like, how do I not make it a mushy middle book? How do I make it more than just an elaborate bridge? How do I tell a story? How do I tell what happens next when I thought the story was finished already? How do I... Anyway, so all of this has been swirling around in my head, which has made writing the second book really difficult, and it made wanting to write the third book, or wanting to even think about the third book, very stressful. Luckily, I managed to come up with an idea that my editor and some of my beta readers absolutely adore. And hopefully it hits the right tone and it scores the way I want it to. But I'm really, really proud of this story, or this idea for the third book. So I'm hoping that it wraps it up in a nice way, but it itself is a beautiful independent narrative that you can read without having read the other 2. And it just gives a very satisfying cap to the story, as well as a satisfying cap to the character's emotional growth, the narrative, all of that. Anyway, that's all a very, really long way of saying I've been very, very nervous about this second book. It's my first sequel. I wasn't sure if people were going to like it, especially the people who loved The Untold Tale so much. But the thing that I've been hearing consistently from my beta readers, including my mother, has been, it's the best thing you've ever written. It's better than the first one. It's fantastic. It does everything you want it to. You have no worries. And when you have this big, anxious, emotional cloud building, it takes a lot of positivity to push that back down. I read somewhere that one positive comment, 10 positive comments are equal to 1 negative comment. So you need to hear something nice about your work 10 times before it can erase something negative about your work with the one time. And I do find that is actually a balance that happens. I feel that when I read a negative review of my work, I get really bummed and I really internalize it. But when I read a positive review of my work, I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. That's just that person's opinion. It's this weird artist thing. You take a negative opinion as fact, but you take a positive opinion as opinion. I don't know, artist brains we're weird. And we just take things personally, even though you try not to. And in the business, you can't. So, I mean, that's been my last week, is living at the theater and scrambling to finish these edits on The Forgotten Tale, get it to my agent so my agent can read it, and then once she's turned it around this week, get it to my publisher. And then from here, I have one more novella to write. I have 2 feature films to write. I have the 3rd book in the series to write. That should take me to about February. And then I plan to sleep for most of March, I think. And then from there, in the summer, I have to immediately jump into the Skylard Saga. So I've got to write Search and Sacrifice. Thus is the life of a professional writer. So thank you for listening. And as always, if you have comments or questions, a topic you'd like me to discuss or address, anything you'd like to know about me, please do feel free to add a question to the comments below, and I will use it as a springboard for next week's vlog. Thank you very much, and happy Halloween. Don't let the Martians invade.